Okay.
You ready?
All set.
Margaret, are you ready?
Yes.
All right. Good afternoon. This is a special meeting for the City of Mobile's Board of Adjustment, Monday, September 20th, 2021. And first, let me announce general procedures for this remote meeting are as follows. When an application is called, staff will admit the concerned parties associated with an application into the meeting. Once parties have joined the meeting, then I will start the board's rules regarding the number of applicants speaking and support of an application and those in opposition. 4 maximum in support and 4 maximum in opposition. Each will have a 5-minute time limit, and then the applicant will have an additional 2-minute opportunity for rebuttal. Let's start with a roll call. Mr. Davis? Mr. Davis?
Here.
Mr. Golden?
Here.
Mr. Metcalf? Mr. Metcalf? I'll come back to you because I know you're present. Mr. Milling?
Here.
Mr. Burrows? Mr. Burrows? I know you're also present.
I'm here.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I
Mr.
apologize.
Mr. Morris? Okay, I'm not sure if Mr. Morris has joined us yet. Mr. Metcalf? Okay, I think I heard Mr. Metcalf. Is that correct?
Great. Yeah.
Okay, we have 6 members present. Requires-
Mr.
Yes,
Mr. Morris is here and he's connected. If you could,
yeah, I'll
Speak.
verify his. Mr. Morris, we're doing roll call. Can you say present?
Present.
All right, we have all 7 members now present. Requires 5 to vote to affirm a motion. We have a quorum, therefore we can proceed with the meeting. And now the chair will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So move, Mr. Chair.
Have a motion to adopt, to have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved as presented. And Margaret, we're going to go to application 6408. This is regarding 22 Herbert Street. And if you'll invite the applicant and any interested parties into the waiting room.
yes, sir, I've admitted Howard Sumner and Chris Ezel into the meeting. I can see Mr. Ezel. Mr. Ezel, let's make sure we can hear you.
I believe you can hear me.
Yes, sir. Mr. Sumner? Mr. Sumner?
I know he was in the waiting room when we started.
And he's now in the meeting, but I have no audio. And he is the applicant.
Mr. Sumner, can you unmute your connection? While he's doing that, Margaret, do we have any communications either in support or opposition?
We have Mr. Ezel in the meeting. He is a neighbor. The purpose of the application, as illustrated in the site plan and the staff report, are for front yard, side yard, and combined side yard setback variances for the property at 22 Hurlburt Street. Ms. Sumner, it's showing connecting to audio. Mr. Sumner, could you please unmute?
Hello?
Yes, sir. Okay, Mr. Sumner, you're now in the meeting. Mr. Chairman, we have the 2 people that have signed up to speak in the meeting, with Mr. Sumner being the applicant.
All
I need
right,
to make I need to make a correction.
Uh,
First name is Sumner, last name is Howard.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Howard. All right, your application for a side yard, combined side yard setback within the front yard setback, inside yard setback requirements. And it was recommended for denial. Will you tell the board why we should consider otherwise?
Okay, I'm trying to add some more square footage to my house so I can move my fiance in. If I can't do that, I will probably necessarily have to tear the house down and build something else.
Okay, well, tell us about what you consider hardships associated with the property that would prohibit you from building within the setback requirements.
Okay, I have probably a couple 100-year-old live oak in the backyard, which I would like to keep for shade reasons, and that would impede if I have to go 10 foot off the property line and do the same version of my remodel. I would probably have to cut that tree down.
Okay, and the staff reports that it's a fairly narrow lot, if that's what my understanding was, like 50 feet or less.
That's right, and I share driveways with the next door neighbor at 22 Hurlburt Street.
Okay. All right, how old is this home, this structure?
I believe it was built in the late 40s or early 50s. Don't quote me on that.
Okay, so as the staff, I think, stated, it was prior to probably the zoning ordinances at the time.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, any questions of the board for the applicant?
Not really.
Well, I'm asking the board now, Mr. Howard. Okay,
I can barely hear you.
all right, well, I'll try to speak louder.
Thank you.
Margaret,
Mr. Chair,
yes, Mr. Metcalf.
yes, Mr. Howard, what's the total square footage you would be adding?
We'll go from 1,200, I believe, to 1,600 total.
Okay, with the majority of it being maybe a bedroom in the back?
No, there is a bedroom in the back. I just wanted to add a master bathroom off the back.
Okay, and then a little addition up in the front and on the sides, just expanding the footprint a little bit?
Yes, sir. And adding a front porch too, screened in front porch.
Okay, so the addition on the front is a porch.
About 6 foot of it.
Okay,
Yeah. And then you've got the two sides, which I'm just elongating the front room.
right. And then it looks like the addition is actually a little bit further off the property line than your existing structure is.
Depending on which side.
I'm talking about on the north side, the bigger part of the addition in the rear. Looks like your existing house is almost on the property line.
Yeah, it's 1 foot, 2.5 inches on the property line. So I wanted to set back. I think it's 2.5 feet, so that if I got the permit to run, I wouldn't run into the property line again.
Right.
Because the property line runs at an angle.
And your neighbor to the north, is he okay with this, or how does he feel, or do we know?
She's waiting. She's ready.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. All right, Margaret, do we have someone in the room that's a interested party in support of this application?
We have Mr. Christopher Ezel in the meeting, and he is the only other person signed up.
Okay, Mr. Ezel, can you hear us?
I sure can.
And are you in support of this application?
I'm neither in support or in opposition. The clarification that Mr. Howard provided was very helpful, what he was attempting to add on the front porch, but I'm in neither support or opposition.
Okay, which side of the property are you on the side of the addition or the shared driveway?
I'm south of the property across the street, about 4 houses down.
Okay. All right, and so based on the information you've heard, do you see any hardship, any reason why the board should deny the application?
I personally do not know, sir.
Okay. Any questions of the board for Mr. Ezel, since he spent the time to log in and wait for us? All right, well, thank you, Mr. Ezel.
Thank you very much. May I be excused?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, as staff has stated, we have no other interested parties in the waiting room. The staff recommended for denial. They did give a fairly lengthy summary of some of the history and details related to this application. The applicant stated that there are maybe some trees that are on the site that may conflict with complying with the code and the ordinances related. The staff did state that this is a 50-foot wide lot, which is somewhat narrow, and as the applicant said, it's at an angle. And I think that probably summarizes what I gather from this. This will conclude our public hearing on the application. And I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to, before we make a motion, just to comment. Margaret, could you go to that next, the slide that was up before that was just showing the neighborhood, the street map? Yeah. I mean, typically on these type of applications, it seems like one of the things that I do, and I think other board members have done in the past, you kind of look at the character of the neighborhood. And if you look at that, I mean, it just seems like to me consistently up Kirby and Hurlburt, you've got houses that, you know, tuck pretty close to the property lines or, you know, over the setback lines. And so, you know, that coupled with kind of the conversation that Mr. Metcalf was having about, you know, his addition is still within, you know, inside of where his existing property, you know, distance to the property line. It just doesn't seem to me that it's creating anything that's out of character for the neighborhood or a hardship. So I guess with that being said, I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, I have a motion to approve, subject to any conditions like downspouts or gutters.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, downspouts and gutters so that he's not creating a drainage issue on his neighbor.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, Margaret, if you'll allow those interested parties out of the waiting room, and our next application will be 6409 2662 Fillingham Street. And this is Doris Bettis. If you'll.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. I have one person in the waiting room that is not identified. I think it may be the applicant, as I've been able to identify everyone else. Shall we be brave?
Yes, and I believe the applicant, when you first opened the meeting, her identification was illustrated on the screen. So she was in the waiting room initially. Because her and Mr. Howard were both in the waiting room together at the same time.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that was Miss Godfrey, because someone's missing. I only have 5 people in the waiting room.
All right, well, just go ahead and invite her and we'll just see if that's the applicant.
See what we get. It's still connected to audio. You've been admitted to the Board of Zoning Adjustment meeting. What is your name, please?
Brenda Godfrey.
Okay, Ms. Godfrey, I'm sorry, I entered you two applications too early. I'm gonna need to put you back into the waiting room until your application is called.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, so do you see the applicant?
We do not, let me check one more.
I was gonna say, we can proceed to the next and come back to that one if we need.
Let's do that, please.
Okay. I'm gonna mark it so I don't forget it this time. All right. Let's move on to application 6410. This is 408 Pine Court. And Margaret, if you'll invite the applicant and any interested parties into the meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I have admitted Mr. Pete Vallis, the applicant, into the meeting. He is the only person signed up on this application. We've received no correspondence or any other communications regarding concerns regarding as it pertains to this application. And I will let you know when he is connected to audio.
All right, thank you.
It's still connecting. Mr. Vallis, can you hear us?
Yes, I sure can. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, your application, which is 6410 regarding 408 Pine Court. Side yard, combined side yard setback variance to allow a garage within the required side yard setback with reduced combined side yard setback in the R1 single, all the rest of the overview of the application. Staff recommended for approval for the reduced side yard setback, and they had conditions regarding gutters and downspouts and full compliance with municipal codes and ordinances. Are you in agreement with the staff's recommendation?
Are you asking me?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
You're the
yes, we are. And I believe our architectural drawings showed gutters and downspouts on, if you look at a wall section we gave you.
It would just be redundant with what you already provided.
Okay. All right, Mr. Ballas, so you're in agreement with staff's recommendations. Are there any questions of the board for the applicant? Okay. And Margaret, as you stated, we have no one either in support or opposition in the waiting room.
That is correct.
All right. This will conclude the public hearing for this application. Staff's recommended approval and with conditions that the applicant's in agreement with. Chair, entertain a motion.
So moved.
Okay, I had a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Everyone in support of the application, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone in opposition? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you
Alright.
very much.
Thank you. All right, Margaret, application 6411. If you'll invite all interested parties and the applicant This is for 2669, and I'm not even gonna say, how do you say that? Ferrer Drive South?
Yes, and I've admitted the applicant, Miss Brenda Godfrey, into the meeting. Miss Godfrey?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Okay, good afternoon. Margaret, do we have any others that are interested parties for this application in support or opposition?
None.
Any communications?
No, sir.
Okay. Ms. Godfrey, your application has been recommended for denial by the staff. Would you tell us why we should consider otherwise?
Because of my 20+ years of experience with childcare, I offer parents in the community high-quality childcare service in an effort to attend school or work. Also, I strive to provide my parents with my undivided attention and adhere to their concerns about their children on a one-on-one basis. And because of the need of this home daycares in our community.
Okay. Any questions of the board for the applicant? Ms. Godfrey, have you had a visit from the fire or from the licensing bureau as it relates to your facility?
I had my license from DHR probably about a month ago. A visit from them, but it was time for my license renewal.
Okay. Obviously, with the nature of your service and increasing it beyond the initial 5, I believe it calls for the fire department to review. Is that right, Margaret?
That
So,
is correct. As
so
far
you
as the
have-
go ahead, I apologize.
no, go ahead. I asked you a question. I'm sorry.
It's okay. The fire department will consider this a commercial daycare and will require full compliance with their regulations, which I'm sorry, I'm having to pull up theirs. Yeah, which will could include a sprinkler system. Because once she exceeds 6 children, she's a commercial daycare as far as the fire department is concerned. So full compliance with their regulations will be required.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay. Any other questions of the board for the applicant? I will state, in looking at the site plan, it looks like you have sufficient space for parking and access for the parents.
Yes, sir.
Because you've got several concrete drives and then the porch entrance area. And I suspect you've got, it appears, a fence around the rear of the facility for security.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I have no further questions. Once again, any questions of the board?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Davis.
My question is in reference to the fire department, Ms. Godfrey. Do you have the sprinkler system, or are you preparing to put one in, or just where are
I'm
you?
I'm willing to put one in, yes, sir, once they come out and give me the requirements that I need to get done.
Okay. Is that a prior prerequisite, Mr. Chairman, that she would need to have in place prior to approval, or we can approve this pending her good faith in doing that?
Oh, I believe any approval would be subject to compliance with city ordinances and fire code requirements. That would be the statement that would be included in if a motion should be approved to approve this.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Anyone else have questions for the applicant? Okay. Margaret, you stated that we have no one in the waiting room, either in support or opposition, and we've had no communications regarding this application, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that will conclude our public hearing for application 6411. Staff's recommended for denial. The applicant stated that the need for the service, and her 20+ years of experience support the application, and willingness to comply with the city and fire code requirements, should that be a requirement, or should be necessary, I should say. All right, Chair, entertain a motion.
I motion that we approve it.
Second,
Okay, and that's subject to city and fire code requirements, correct?
That's correct.
And who was the second, Mr. Davis?
yes, sir.
Okay, I have a motion with a second. Any further discussion? All those in support of the application, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
Opposed?
Okay, I have one opposed and 6 in support. Motion carries. All right, that concludes that application. If you'll excuse them from the waiting room and from the meeting, we'll go to the next. And by the way, has the applicant for number 2 logged in yet?
No, sir, I do not have anyone signed in on number 2, and the applicant is, for number 5, is traveling. They were in the meeting, in the waiting room, and now they're back out again. If we could go ahead and take number 6, the applicant is in the waiting room for item number 6.
Okay, we'll do that. We'll table application 6412, it's 2, wait a minute, 6412, 6356, 5279, 5251, 4007, 3892, 2258, until later in the meeting to allow the applicant to rejoin us. All right, and we're on application 6, is that?
Yes, sir.
All right, this is 6413, 6362 regarding 1704 McGill Avenue. And Margaret, if you'll invite the applicant and any interested parties into the meeting.
I've admitted Tim Spafford into the meeting. He's still connecting to audio.
Okay, and Riley Terrell, how about that individual?
I believe Mr. Spafford is the architect for Raleigh Terrell. Mr. Spafford, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, the architect's now in the meeting, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and do we have any interested parties either in support or opposition today?
No, sir.
Do we have any communications regarding this application?
No, sir. No communications, and Mr. Spafford is the only one that is signed in to speak.
Okay. Mr. Spafford, the staff's recommended this application for approval, subject to various engineering and ordinance, municipal codes and ordinances. Do you have any questions? Is the applicant in agreement?
I reviewed the staff recommendations and the comments. The only one that I'm concerned about is the fire department comment about a handicap parking space and access to the building. And what we would like to request is that the parking along the street in front be designated as a handicap spot. And that would be that would provide an accessible route from the street parking to the either one of the first floor units. And the reason being, this property was expanded by a previous re-subdivision of the residential property to the north, and that's where they got parking anyway. The 5 spots that we were able to get prior to that, parking for this building was on the street. So I don't think it's if we designate one handicap space out front, and then we would have access to both first floor units and then still have the gravel parking in the rear without trying to provide a handicap space and a sidewalk to the entrance to both first floor units. I mean, we're tight on space. And if we give up a handicap spot and a access aisle, I mean, we'll be down to three parking spaces. So
How many units are, these are 2 units?
there's 2 units downstairs and 2 units upstairs.
And how many parking spaces are currently allocated?
Well, there are 5 spaces laid out in the rear.
Right. So
But like I
the
said, that
handicap in front of-
property, yes, sir.
So likely they'll have other parking in front anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they could, they're all 1-bedroom units. So, you know, it shouldn't be always parking on the street, but I mean, that would be, certainly was that way when the building was occupied previously because there was no parking. Well, I guess the side drive, you could have parked a couple of cars.
Have you assessed the handicap access for curb cut and all that for if you designate a space in the front?
No, but if that is acceptable, when we submit the civil engineering drawings, we'll incorporate that.
Okay, Margaret, is there any, this is kind of unusual for us to allocate a handicap or any parking on the street front like this.
I don't think the Board of Adjustment has really that technical authority because it's not completely under the zoning ordinance. I would recommend compliance with the traffic engineering comments. However, to give Mr. Spafford a little degree of comfort, put coordination with city staff to provide required handicap parking. If it's if the compliant handicap parking can be provided on street, then that would allow for it. But handicap compliance is not laid out in the zoning ordinance.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Metcalf.
Margaret, is a handicap spot a requirement of a renovation to apartments in historic area?
This property has been vacant for a number of years and is now being put back into operation. And quite frankly, I think regardless of that, ADA is requiring accessibility regardless of whether it came out of use or not.
Okay, you
Okay.
sure about that?
Since this is multifamily, ADA is gonna kick in and they would have to come in compliance.
Okay,
Yeah, I would say that maybe we make a motion that it's either on site or if the city can coordinate for on-street compliance. Because if it falls at the applicant, either way, the applicant has to comply.
Right.
Margaret, is anybody from traffic in this meeting?
No, they're not.
Okay. So I'm not, I'm like Adam, I've never seen a handicap spot designated on a public right of way.
Right.
right.
And so, yeah, if the condition is worded to where the city still has the leeway, if we're legally can't do that, that's fine.
Yeah,
There's,
I'm just thinking that the applicant may have to put it on site and just have to have on-street parking if.
There's multiple handicap spaces designated downtown on the street.
And it's good point. I don't know.
Yeah.
Haven't come across that, and this board has not addressed that. I just want to make sure that traffic engineering is okay with it, and as long as we're covering that in our motion, that's fine.
Okay. Any other questions of the board for the applicant or for staff? Okay, Margaret.
Yeah,
I'm
a
sorry.
quick question.
Yeah.
Quick question. I guess for the applicant, so noted that it was one bedroom, but I'm seeing more space than that. Not a big deal. I'm just curious.
Well, he's the owner wanted to make a one bedroom and then have a smaller room that would be like an office.
Okay, but it could be used as a bedroom.
Yeah, I mean, it could be.
Okay.
I mean, you can't control that. And one other note on the parking, if we were to designate a parking space in the rear and for handicap as well as an access aisle, we'll be down to 3 spaces. So then you're going to have the other people parking on the street regardless. So I think it's the best outcome is to put the handicap space on the street. And then, I mean, if it's in the rear, nobody's going to know it's there. So
And how do you do that with gravel?
we'd have to pay part of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I think we'll leave it in our motion to be coordinated with the city, because based on maybe the elevation and other things, there may be issues with it being on the street. I don't know. I'll leave it for them to work with you on. If there should be a motion to approve. All right, staff recommended for approval, and there was conditions with stormwater and all the other that goes along with this, traffic engineering to review for handicap and also for any issues associated with the surface. Any other questions of the board? All right, this will conclude our public hearings for application 6413, 6362 regarding 1704 McGill Avenue. Chair, entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval subject to staff recommendations and with regard to the handicap parking that the applicant coordinate with the city for the best outcome.
A second.
I have a motion with a second with conditions. Any further discussion? All those in
I
favor
have
of
a
the motion
question.
say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I have a question.
We've concluded the public hearing. If you'll talk to Margaret offline, or somebody from the staff will do that.
Well, we did not discuss the landscaping part of it.
I think we approved everything, did we not?
Yes, I move for approval.
Okay.
Unless you want us to undo that. I think you're
Well-
good, Mr. Spafford.
Okay.
All right, that'll conclude the public hearing on that application. Margaret, did the applicant for number 2 or for number 5 show back up?
I have no one in the waiting room for application number 2. And staff would propose, excuse me, in light of the issue that we had with legal ads and having to schedule a special meeting, we would propose that the board hold this over to their October meeting.
I would agree. All right, and based on the technical difficulties we sometimes have with these electronic virtual meetings, I would say that consideration should be given to the applicants for that as well. So application 6409, Chair will entertain a motion to hold over to the October meeting.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion to hold it over. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, application 6412, 6356, 5279, 5251, 4007, 3892, 2258 regarding 1363 Government Street. Chair would entertain a motion to hold it over to the October meeting.
Oh, Mr. Chair, hold on. We do have Ms. Brenda Bolton signed up to speak in opposition. I have also been in communication with the applicant's brother, and I communicated with the board's attorney. Sir, can you hear us? This is an application.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I may have made a mistake. Is this Ms. Bettis? Ma'am?
Hello?
Hello.
Hi, I'm sorry. Are you Mr. Sued's brother?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, because of his travel, his brother is speaking in his behalf,
Okay.
and
So
you
we-
will need.
Okay, so we can proceed with this application. Have you admitted all interested parties into the meeting?
Yes, I have. The interested party is Ms. Bolton, Ms. Brenda Bolton. Before we begin, I also need to read into the record the correspondence that has been forwarded to the board regarding this application. In opposition, we have Jacob Smith, members of the Government Street Collaborative and Linecoff Historic District, Brenda Bolton, and Susan Thomas. Okay, I have admitted Abdel Hamed Sued into the meeting representing his brother Muhammad Sued.
Okay. Mr. Sued, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. And your application or your brother's application is for a freestanding digital sign within the 300-foot setback requirements for residentially zoned property. Existing canopy sign for more than 64 square feet, signage of a single tenant site and in the Lonecoff Historic District and the Neighborhood Business District, the zoning ordinance does not allow digital signs within that 300-foot setback. The staff's recommended for approval for the digital pricing sign with conditions. And then there was an issue of finding facts regarding the canopy sign. Let's see here. There was a requirement for a light limit on the digital sign for evening and the daytime as part of some of the conditions. Are you in agreement with the staff's recommendations as your brother's representative?
Yes, correct. Yes.
Okay. Any questions of the board for the applicant?
No.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Golden.
have we not already had an application on this sign?
Yes, I believe we have.
And so what's different there than now? I mean, we decided we we're gonna do sign similar in size, right? But on the ground level. And now they're trying to put it on a pylon?
Combination of that, and they allowed the approval to expire.
Okay.
So it was originally ground level in the same location as the previous. Is that my understanding, Margaret? It was like Griffins or Griffiths or something. Margaret, you're muted.
Griffith's sign was approved by the board. This sign, as you can see, I'm sorry, there you go. It's on a pole 2 feet from the ground. The board can, however, stipulate that it has to be a full monument style sign.
Okay. And the same location?
Correct. There's
Okay.
a sign there now. I believe this would essentially, it would take the place of the existing one.
Okay, and then there's an issue regarding an unpermitted sign on the west elevation.
Correct.
And then it appears there's already a logo sign on the street front, government street front.
Yes, and the sign is not very visible because it's right in front of an oak tree.
Correct. Okay, Mr. Golden, any further questions?
No, I mean, I would be inclined to approve what we have in the past, but nothing with the piling, so.
Okay. Any other questions of the board for the applicant? All right, Margaret, we have individuals in the waiting room in opposition.
Yes, Ms. Brenda Bolton.
Ms. Bolton? Ms. Bolton, can you hear us?
Yes, you there?
Yes. You are in opposition, correct?
That was feedback from the applicant. I've muted them, asking Ms. Bolton to unmute. Brenda? Mr. Chairman, she is muted. I've sent the message to unmute. We could be having technical issues.
Ms. Bolton? Is Ms. Bolton one of the individuals that corresponded regarding the application?
Yes,
And what was her statement?
it was rather extensive.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, in light of the technical issues, it may be appropriate to hold over this item as well to the October meeting, which will be 2 weeks from today.
Okay. And do we have anyone else in the waiting room?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. In light of the technical issues, once again, the chair will entertain a motion to hold this application over.
So move.
I have a motion to hold it over. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? And we apologize to the applicant and to Ms. Bolton that we were unable to hear this application and close it out today. All right, any other business for today?
This is Doug. Margaret, let me ask you a question. You might slap me for asking this in front of everybody, but I was talking with Gina Gregory this morning, and the council's meeting in person now. And considering all of the technical issues we're having, and I know it's a lot harder on you to conduct this meeting remotely, is it time we go back to in-person meetings?
Yes.
That is something that we need to communicate with the administration and others on, but I would also say that the legal ads have gone out for the October meeting for a remote meeting. So the earliest it could return to in-person is November.
Okay, well, you and I will talk later about talking with the administration. Thank you.
Okay.
Would the board be willing to go back to in-person meetings?
That's what I'm getting ready to ask. All right, let's call for a poll as to who would be in support. Mr. Golden,
Support.
Mr. Milling,
Support.
Mr. Morris,
I support.
Mr. Davis,
Support.
Mr. Burris,
I'll go with the majority. Support.
Mr. Metcalf.
Yes, support.
Okay, and I'm in support. All right, well, if you'll discuss with the office and see if November we can,
Okay,
I think all of us, we can work around any precautions that are necessary.
If it makes any difference, I think I'm unmuted now.
Yeah, we've already concluded
Okay.
we'll have that particular application in October. We
Okay.
appreciate you're joining us, but we're at that point in the meeting. All right, Margaret, if you'll clear the waiting room, and Mr. Metcalf, or Mr. Anderson, any other business?
Yes, sir.
All right, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, thank you all. Have a good day.
Bye.